Good afternoon, everyone. Mary Sloan here with another episode of Inspirational Influencer News, Secrets of People Making Money and Making a Difference. And my guest this afternoon, Lynn Tranchell, is certainly someone who has been living that in spades. She is someone who is definitely making a difference. And as we were talking before this started, she helps people with success on their terms. And wouldn't you like success on your terms? So Lynn has been helping business leaders achieve their goals for over 30 years. As a coach who specializes in the science of success, we're going to have to ask her about this science of success. Lynn has a passion for helping entrepreneurs and business professionals achieve success in all areas of life and business. Imagine that, a balanced life and a balanced, successful life. This allows you to work less, earn more, and without sacrificing your time. Wow. So, Lynn, that sounds like a great life. What is the one secret that you would give to people that would really help them understand how they could be successful on their terms?
Yeah, well, you have to know what success means to you. So whatever success means to you, you have to have an idea of your vision of that successful life. And then once you have that vision, I find that there's these little comments that come in from the peanut gallery, so to speak, your subconscious saying, what makes you think you can do that? Why do you want to do that? And sometimes it even says in a way that it thinks it's being helpful to you. It says, well, now is not the right time. If you just do this first, then you'll be able to concentrate all of your effort on what you want. So just wait a while. So these subconscious thoughts, these paradigms, so to speak, keep you from moving forward very often because your subconscious would rather have you be miserable than change. And anytime you want to do something new, it considers it a change and it tries to stop you.
Yeah, that's not really helpful. I mean, what was in the makeup of man that we couldn't change? I mean, you would think that given that we were made to evolve, that was kind of in the makeup, that change would be a good thing, but somehow it isn't. So how can you overcome that?
Yeah, well, one thing you have to realize is that our most primitive part of our brain, the amygdala, is there for our safety. And it was developed at a time when we lived in caves and we had to know within a split second when we walked out the door if there was any danger at all. So your subconscious would rather be wrong 99 times than to miss that one opportunity to save your life. So whenever it sees something different, it sees something questionable, it throws up the warning signs and tries to keep you from moving forward. So it's just a matter of noticing when you're getting those thoughts. And just know that most of us do not have life-threatening things going on when we walk out our door. So most of those comments coming from our subconscious don't apply anymore. We really don't have that kind of fear anymore. So it's really an ancient thing that isn't as relevant anymore, although it still has an impact on how we do things.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about fear, and it's kind of like, how can we possibly be so afraid of change when, in fact, we aren't really that thrilled with the circumstances right now? So you'd think we'd be all cheering and rah-rah, and I'm going to change, and I'm going to make these changes. And yet somehow that's really hard.
Yeah, it's the comfort zone. We would rather be comfortable than to make a change. So it's also looking at where you want to go and then asking yourself, am I willing to be comfortable in the discomfort long enough to make that change. So we want to pay attention to what we're thinking and how we're feeling about those thoughts, because our thoughts and our feelings create the actions, and that creates our results.
So can you manage that?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I have a system called the AIRR method, AIRR, and that is exactly what it does. The first step is awareness, the A. You want to notice those thoughts and notice if they're moving you in the direction you want to go or not. And then the second step, the I, is interrupt. You want to stop those thoughts. Say something like, up until now, or a part of me. By stating it that way, your subconscious doesn't disagree with you. It agrees with you. Up until now, that is true. Or a part of you, that is true. And that allows you to have the next part come in without your subconscious arguing. So the first R is just release it. Release that old thought. You want to picture it floating away like a balloon or something like that. Or you might want, and then the second R is to replace it. So you want to replace that thought with a new thought, a more empowering thought. For example, you might have said, I'm never going to be good at money. So you say, up until now, I thought of myself as not being able to handle money, but now I'm powerful at handling my money and I'm getting better every day. So you just awareness, interrupt, and then replace. And then the key is to take action. So if this is who I am, what action can I take? Because you want to ground that reframe with action to support it.
That's really interesting. And because I have always sort of heard that, you can bring it along with you, but I hadn't heard of kind of reframe it and replace it.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like fear. Well, I've always considered that fear was natural and it was put there to keep us safe. And instead of trying to get rid of it, which you can't do, you could just take it along and say, well, thanks for helping and let's see how we come along. But I hadn't ever sort of thought of really reframing it and just recognizing it, acknowledging it, and then saying, well, that was yesterday and today, or that was last thought, and I think I don't have to think that anymore.
Yeah, exactly. It's just like my client, Gina. She was always a people pleaser. So she was constantly saying yes, which caused her to be overwhelmed and busy. And when she said yes, it wasn't about, increasing her business monetarily. So she would say yes to things that might not have even made her money. So she got to the point where she recognized exactly what she wanted to be able to do. She said no to what she didn't want to do. And she has already doubled her income and well on her way to tripling her income.
Wow. Just by taking charge and getting really clear. And I think that clearness, and you started at the beginning with helping with visualization, because a lot of times we're not clear because we aren't quite clear about where we want to go anyway. So it's sort of, well, what's the next step? I don't know. Where am I going?
Yeah. Yeah. So the most important question to always ask is, what would I love? Not what do my circumstances, my education, the economy, just what would I love? And that puts you in kind of a different place of seeing things that you might not have seen before. So you see things differently and you really are able to take that process and create a vision for the life you would love and the business you would love.
That's great, because getting that clarity. So do you have people write out their vision, or how do you help them clarify it?
Exactly. Yeah. And I have all of my clients create a vision in the 4 main areas, because you can't be rich and abundant in one area and bankrupt in another. They all bleed together. They all interact together. So you create a vision in your health, relationships, your career, and then time and money freedom. And time and money freedom is separate than your career because it's what you do with your time and money. So you want to make sure that you have the time and money to do those things that you really love to do. And then once you have that vision, again, that voice will start talking to you. And that's where I help people the most, is to turn that voice from somebody that says no into their own personal cheerleader. So it cheers you on and you're able to take those steps to move forward and create a life you love and a business you love without sacrificing either.
That's awesome. I mean, having that voice in your head going, yes, that's a good idea. Great
Mhm.
job. That
Yeah.
would be, instead of, are you sure? I don't think so. Why don't we think about that again? Maybe it'd be better this way. Because I know that it's, sometimes I just, as I'm trying to make a decision, it's like, okay, now that I've spun my wheels going nowhere for a while, maybe I should have a cup of coffee and rethink this, just get a little clearer on what it is that I want. And it is clarity on what you want, because you can't really make a plan to go anywhere. It's sort of like going on a trip. Well, I think I'll go on a trip. Where do you want to go? Oh, I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a saying that there is no port is I'm having a hard statement. Any port is if you don't have a destination in mind, you have no idea when you get there.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
yeah,
Well,
definitely.
and if you don't know where you want to go, then anywhere will do. And it's sort of, oh, I didn't want to go here. Well, you didn't say anything else, so here you are.
Yeah, and if you don't have a destination in mind, you're never going to get there either.
Yeah, exactly. Or you'll be there and you won't even recognize it.
Yeah.
So, how long do you work with clients to help them, or is this something that they do on a regular basis with you?
Yeah, I have different programs that I do that, depending on where they are and where they want to go. It's anywhere from 6 weeks to a year, depending on how much support they need. So it's a program where I provide recordings and a workbook, and then we get together once a week in a group setting and go over anything that is getting in the way. And I really, the most important things I help people with is shifting those thought habits so that they get support in creating what they would love and then taking that action, because the action is important also to ground what you're doing. Everything that you reframe, the action kind of reinforces it and gives your subconscious the nod that, yes, I really can do this.
Well, and you mentioned habits. I think it's the habits that can trip us up, because if you aren't kind of conscious of habits, you take and do them and you go, how come I did that? Oh, because it's a habit that I do that.
Yeah, it's just like my client Cindy said, she had no idea how negative her thoughts were until she started working with me. It's just something you do day in and day out. You don't really even think about it. It just happens. And that's why it's important to have a vision, so that you live by design and not default. Design is what you would love, and default is usually somebody else's idea of what your life should be.
Or nobody's idea. And then you get a life you probably don't love at all.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
A life by accident. And they're like,
Yeah.
that doesn't sound that attractive. Life by
That's
design
right.
sounds attractive. Life by accident, not so much. So do you have any hints or tips for people that want to kind of get a handle on this? Is there like visioning that you can do kind of to get started, or anything like that?
Yeah, I think it's just a matter of asking yourself, what would I love? And then just sitting in it for a while and just see what comes to you, and just write down whatever comes to you, and know that if you can dream it, you can achieve it. You might not know how. And the how really isn't as important as the what when you're beginning. So once you know the what, then you can start looking at how to do it. And as you take a step, the next step reveals itself, and you take that step and you just take little baby steps. The baby steps can take you all the way to the top of Mount Everest. You have to take those steps though.
Well, I think if you're going up Mount Everest, you better do a little planning in advance too, with some idea that you're going up there. Otherwise, you could be halfway up and have no food and no oxygen and no water.
Yeah, exactly. So you still need to know where you're going, and as you're going along, the how does come to you.
And as you are starting on your visioning process, is that something that you should do on a regular basis? Like, is that something you should do, make as a daily practice, or how what works best for developing the visioning muscle?
Yeah. So what I have my clients do is, once they have that beginnings of their vision, I have them either read it in the morning and write it at night, or write it in the morning and read it at night, and really be in that feeling. Because you don't want to just think about it. You want to ink it. You want to be able to, because when you write, it puts a different connection in your brain. So, and then by being in that place, I know a lot of people like to say, fake it until you make it. I like to say, be it until you see it, because fake it till you make it still seems to me that it's keeping it in the future, and it's keeping it kind of like it's not real. But if you can be it until you see it, how does this person walk out the door in the morning? What conversations does this person have? Where do you go? What do you do? So really get into that feeling of being that person. And then taking those steps becomes easier. It kind of reinforces that confidence that this is who I am, and I know what to do next.
Yeah, it's interesting. Be, do, have. Instead, and it's hard for us, at least hard for me. Other people may find it easy, but hard for me sometimes to be that and kind of put myself in the sense of being that, so that you start to take the actions that that person would actually take, so that you can then do the things that the person would do. And so I guess you're kind of trying to put yourself in the mindset of somebody who is already what you see.
Yes, exactly. And it's kind of the society kind of goes against that. It's always asking you, what's your job? What's your title? What's this? So it's always talking about what you have instead of talking about who you are. So I think it's also reinforced by a lot of society, and a lot of other things just reinforce that have first. So by making that shift and really focusing on the being first, you're able to do things in a much better way and see things in a much better way.
When you were saying that, it made me kind of go back to thinking about man as we began our journey through this world. And we at some point in time, we were kind of hunter-gatherers, and so you would be the hunter, or you would be the gatherer, or and so those kind of titles were action titles, whereas doctor, lawyer, motor skate maker, they aren't really action titles, because they don't tell you what the person is actually doing. It's kind of a label that you put on, which doesn't give you access to the action. I mean, if I said to you, oh, I'm a hunter, you would have some idea of the activities that I would do. Whereas if I said to you, I'm a coach. Well, even that doesn't really give you access to the activities that I might do, because coach is just a title. So it's interesting to look at how you title things and what that can open up. I mean, it's fascinating, really. I hadn't looked at it in that kind of vein.
Yeah, and there's also a lot more distractions now than there was back then. Like back in the caveman days, you were a hunter or a gatherer. You didn't have all of these other things going on. You didn't have social media going on. You didn't have the news telling you who you should be. You didn't have, all kinds of things going on, giving you distractions and saying, here, buy this, you really need this. You just had this one focus. So I think it's just a matter of getting back into that one focus. And that's where your vision helps. Having that vision of where you want to be can give you that focus, so that anything else that's going on around you, if you have that vision, you can focus on that. And it sort of allows that external distractions to sort of dissolve away, so you can stay focused also.
Yeah, that's great. And I guess as long as you kind of clarify that vision and kind of live into that vision, you can keep checking back to see, okay, I'm about to do this. What does that fit into that vision? Will that kind of fulfill that vision, or is that stepping away? Is that what your clients find?
Yeah, and it also allows you to say yes and no with more clarity. If this is your vision, will taking this step take me there? If it's a yes, then you do it. If it's a no, if it's going to take me some other direction, then it makes it much easier to say yes and no to things also.
Yeah, and that can be, as you said, the hunter-gatherer crowd didn't have much going on. Whereas, we've got news streams and this action and that action, and jump into this meeting and come to that meeting and go here, and we've got all these different social media, and jump into my Telegram channel and jump into my, what is it, the B one. I mean, you can just jump around all day long and be entertained and think you're learning stuff, but to what reason?
Yeah, so by having that focus, you can, like I said, you can say yes and no to things. Just like my client Anna Kay is a playwright, and she was in the middle of a production, and her director quit for personal reasons. And she said in the past, she would either have taken on that extra responsibility or just abandon the process. And because she had that vision of what she wanted, she knew she didn't want to be the director, and she knew she wanted to continue on. So by staying in that place of focusing on her vision of what she wanted to accomplish, which is a successful play, she was able to go out and find a new director, and the play was a huge success. And she said more important than the play being a huge success was how she was in the process. She was able to focus on her part of the job and know that everybody else was focused on their part of the job, so that it made it easier and more fun as she went along.
And isn't that a perfect run back to days of yore when you were hunter-gatherers? Because the hunters didn't try to be gatherers, and the gatherers didn't try to be hunters, because the skill set was different. But somehow or other, because it's less clear what your skill set is, I mean, if you were good with a bow and arrow, you were good with your bow and arrow. Whereas when we play mind games, we think, well, I can do that, I can do that, I can do that. And yet that's not really your skill set, and not what you've been trained to do, and not your zone of genius by any stretch of the imagination. And yet we get drawn into doing that and doing it all. It's an interesting exercise to put yourself back into that past and see where and how we kind of can lead ourselves astray in this modern world by blurring the distinctions, because we've got so many of them, right?
Yeah, and it also the opposite of that is true too, is to when you're doing something, if somebody criticizes you, you think you can't do it, even though you know at some level that you're really good at it. One little criticism can take you off track and lead you to believe that maybe this isn't the right thing for me. Maybe I should be doing something else because Jane said that I didn't do that right, or Joe said that this happened. So you get off track by what other people have to say also, instead of, again, focusing on what your vision of your life is.
Yeah, and it's it's really good to have your own vision and realize that other people don't see that vision, that you have it, and they may think that they would be helpful by suggesting this or that because they see it differently, and yet they can't really be helpful because they don't see what you see.
Yeah. So that's, again, another reason to stay in your vision, and then to ask for help too. If you feel as though you need help with accomplishing it, that would be a great time to hire a coach to do that, or to have friends that I also meet with, what I call partners in believing. And we meet once a week, and a lot of times they see in me what I don't necessarily see in myself, and they believe in me when I have trouble believing in myself. So it's also nice to have people around you who believe in you and just unconditionally believe that you can accomplish things.
That's amazing. That's really neat. Partners in believing, and just have a kind of support group where people get together to support one another in maintaining their beliefs and their visions and their clarity in themselves, so that, because oftentimes I know people will believe in me when I've kind of lost it. It's like, I can't do that. I'm going out. And you can do it. And all of a sudden you can go, oh, I can do it. They think I can do it. I guess I can do it. And that's really powerful. That's a great group.
Yeah, it is. And it really helps a lot, especially when because you have to remember that you're always doing your best, and your best differs. For example, if you wake up in the morning and you're not feeling quite well, you still do your best. Your best may not be what it was yesterday because you're not feeling well. And a lot of times we feel as though if we didn't do as much as we did yesterday, then there's something wrong. When in reality, you're still just doing your best. It's just that your best can vary.
Yeah, and definitely. I mean, you can see that sometimes, you wake up and you didn't sleep well, and you're tired, or something has thrown you off, and you're struggling to focus or something, and to be okay with that and look to recognize that, and how can you sort that out, rather than beating yourself up for not being able to be exactly the same every day, because we're not the same every day.
Yeah. And as you're learning new things, you don't accomplish as much when you're learning also. So to be gentle on yourself, and self-compassion is really an important thing as you're learning new things, and as you're stepping out into doing new things, is just to be compassionate with yourself.
Yeah, and give yourself permission. I mean, I am the world's worst critic of myself. Oh, I could have done that better. I should have done that better. And I'm learning to say, I'm starting now, and we're going to get better from here, because I find that I don't start because it's not going to be perfect. So that's something I've had to really learn to forgive myself for, and say, well, it's better than nothing. And, this is the best I can do at this time, and we'll improve on it. And it's great to know that you've got nowhere to go but up.
Yeah, I like to tell my clients progress over perfection. You don't ever want to have to worry about doing it perfectly as long as you do it a little bit better each time.
Yeah. And who says what's perfect? I mean, really, that's the thing I have to keep reminding myself, like, how do you know that's perfect? Maybe it's only halfway there,
Mhm.
so let's just start here. And, I mean, it was like doing this show for, I had to start. One day I just had to start. And it's definitely gotten better. And, I'm clearer now. I handle the situation better now. Of course, that's natural. Now I've been doing it for nearly 8 months. No, the first time wasn't pretty. Fortunately, the person I was interviewing was one of these people who channels God. And I said to her, Deborah, I'm counting on you and God today because I don't know how we're going to get through this. And it went well. I mean, it went well in that I sounded lucid afterwards. She sounded lucid afterwards. The recording was good, so things worked out. But yeah, it's interesting. And to think how hard we are on ourselves.
Yeah, you would never talk to somebody else the way we talk to ourselves. And just think, if you had waited for it to be perfect, we wouldn't be here right now because you would still be waiting.
Exactly. And yeah, because until you've been it and done it and tried it and worked at it, and forget perfection, because that's just a made up word that somebody concocted who needed to judge people.
Yeah, it's just like somebody asked Edison, how did you handle 10,000 failures when he was trying to design the light bulb? He said, I didn't have any failure. It was all feedback. So you take a step and it's like, did that work? Yes, keep going. No, let's try this. So you take a step, did it work? Didn't it? Take a step, did it work? Didn't it work? And when you think about it, so it's just noticing those and making those shifts. When you think about it, an airplane is off track something like 90% of the time
Oh,
because it's constantly, noticing where it is and it gets it back on track, noticing and getting back on track. And I think that is especially important today, is to just notice and get back on track. So you can have those little changes and it doesn't turn into something big and catastrophic. If you're just noticing the moment and get back on track, notice and get back on track, notice and get back on track.
And that really calls for you to be present. And that's one of the things I've noticed about doing a live show. And one of the reasons that I love doing a live show is that you can't not be present because it's live. And it's like having a conversation. You can't have a conversation without being present with the other person, I mean, because there's no going back and you didn't come for a reason other than to have the conversation. So of course you're present. Whereas, it's why I'm not really fond of podcasts, because you can do do-overs and you can, make it anyway. I love the live show and I love the conversations, and I've loved having you on my show and the conversation.
Yeah.
And sadly, we run out of time.
Okay.
Sort of often that we run out of time. But how can people get hold of you, Lynn, so that they can kind of take a look at their vision and see what having a vision and getting some steps to take it to the next level might look like?
Yeah, well, I have my website, lyntranchell.com. I'm also on LinkedIn. I have a Facebook page, Instagram. I even started doing TikTok. And if anybody wants to learn more about the AIR method, I have a workbook that you can use. It's lyntranchell.com/AIR-method. And you can go through the process and see how you can start to shift your thought habits to support where you want to go. And again, anytime if you need help in doing that, I can help you do that. So just contact me and I can help you create the life that you love and the business you love without sacrificing either.
That's great. And for anybody listening, Lynn has a link in the description that is around this talk. So you can go in there. And remember, the AIR method is with 2 R's, AIRR. And I want to thank you. And we'll look forward to seeing you around LinkedIn or around Facebook, and be wary. I understand TikTok is a real security danger, but that's just what I've heard and been told by people who say, oh, it is a danger. So anyway, thank you so much, and we'll look forward to seeing you in the next vision.
Yes, thank you.